right. In this video, I wanted to give a quick rundown on how to use the Blynk app to make an IoT connected microcontroller. I'm using this particle photon down here. I have an LED and a temperature sensor connected to it. You could really use any Wi-Fi enabled device. Here's an ESP32. I have an Arduino Uno Wi-Fi that you could use. So I think Blynk is a pretty slick way to connect your device, but I wanted to walk you through just so you can see the steps. So I'm going to start by making a new template, and I'm going to call this IoT, and I'm going to change this down to particle. So got my template set up, and then I'm going to add my device, and I'm going to call it, and I give all my devices names, so just so I don't confuse myself, this photon I've called Ron. I'm going to do this. It's going to give you this information here. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard to use in just a second. This authorization token, you should try to keep private and not share, so I'll be blurring that out. All right, I'm going to go over to Particle's IDE because I'm using a particle. If you're using Arduino, you can use the Arduino IDE, and I'm going to create a new bit of code here. So I'll create a new app. I'm going to call it Blynk IoT, and that looks good. And then the other thing I need to do is I need to start by, I'm going to start by importing this Blynk library. So I'm going to go search for Blynk in the community libraries, and it pops up right here. And I'm going to include in the project. I'll call this Blynk IoT. Confirm. I'm just going to go ahead and put this statement here. And I should be good to go on that one. And then for my devices, I want to make sure I have the one Ron detected, Ron selected here, and it's online, it's breathing cyan, so should be good to go. Okay, first thing I want to do in my code is I'm going to paste that bit of code right in the top here. I'm also going to add a line of code. I'm going to say define Blynk print serial. That's going to give me some debug code. And then in the setup, I'm going to do serial.begin 2600. And so that way Blynk will output some debug stuff to the serial monitor in case I need to check anything. Okay, to get Blynk set up, I need to do a couple of things. I need to do Blynk.begin, and I need to give it my authorization token, which is this up here. But first, this is one of the tricky things that took me a while, and I wanted to make sure I was clear, is it's really helpful to cast this into a character array. So I'm going to go ahead and just cast that into a character array here, and then Blynk.begin off. The other thing that's kind of tricky and took me a while to figure out is it's really helpful to have a delay of about 5 seconds before you call Blynk.begin, just to make sure your particle is connected to the Wi-Fi and ready to go. And then the other thing you need to do is you need to have Blynk.run in the loop. So I think that's it to get us started here with Blynk. And I'm going to go ahead and flash this to my device. And it should blink purple here in just a second when it connects. And then let's go over to, let's see, it's restarting, connecting to Wi-Fi. Let's go over here to the Blynk console, and we will get this set up. So everything runs off of data streams in Blynk, and so I need to create a new data stream. And I'm going to start with the easy one. This LED is attached to digital pin 1. So digital pin 1, I'm going to say, is an output, and I'm going to create that data stream. And then if I go to the web dashboard, they also have a mobile app, and the mobile dashboard is going to be different than the web dashboard, but I can put this switch in here and connect it to that data stream, digital 1, and I can have on-off labels, and hit save, and it shows me here that my device is online and ready to go. So that should be working. I don't have to change my code at all. I don't have to tell it that over here in my IDE, I don't need to say that pin 1 is an output. I don't need to do digital writes or anything. It's all handled in this blynk.begin and blynk.run. And so if I go over here to the console and I hit on, oh, it didn't work. Data streams. Oh, here's my problem. I didn't set this to pin 1. So I hit save and apply, and go home to the dashboard. And now I can control this LED. Still doesn't work. Oh, here's my problem is I wasn't on my device. I was just on a generic. So now if I hit on, it goes on. You hit off, it goes off. So you got the LED flashing from remote control. I also have this temperature sensor, and I could bring in some information from that temperature sensor. So let me again add another data stream here for that temperature sensor, and that's connected to pin analog 0. So I'm going to do new data stream, analog, and it's on A0. I'm going to set that to an input, and these are 12-bit pins, so it should be 0 to 495, and I can hit create. And then if I go back to my dashboard, I can add in a label. Get rid of this one. And I can connect that to that A0 data stream. And if I want it to change color based on value, I can. So that should be good to go. Hit save and hit apply. And now I'm getting that live reading of that analog 0 pin, 900. If I jump this over, if I jump it over to this 3.3 volt pin here, let's do that. So 3.3 volts, and I jump it over. That should read 495. Give it a second to update here. Let's see what happens. Yep, 494. And if I jump it over to ground, it should read 0. Yep. But I actually want it reading this temperature sensor, so I'm going to put it right there on the temperature sensor. Great. That's not really that useful because that's not a temperature. And so now I'm going to show you how to use a virtual pin to get the temperature. And so I'm going to add one last data stream. And this is a way that you can transmit information from your device to the cloud. And so I'm going to add a virtual pin, and that's V0. I'm going to make this one a double, and the units are going to be degrees Celsius, and let's have it go from -20 to 50 degrees Celsius, and that's all good. This is virtual pin 0. So instead of A0 or D0, it's just virtual pin 0 is the temperature. And I can also rename it if I want. What do you call it? Temperature. Cool. So going back to that dashboard now, I might want to get the temperature device, but first I need to actually edit my code now to send it this. And so I'll show you how we can edit this code to add this virtual one. So here, I'm going to make a variable up here called double temp, see? And that's going to be my temperature. And here, I'm going to do temp C is equal to analog read, or A0. That's going to read this pin, and we need to convert that to a voltage. That's times 3.3. I'm going to, in millivolts, times 3.3 times 1,000 would give it into millivolts, and I need to divide by 495 to get that full scale. So now that's that value in voltage, and I need to convert that voltage to a temperature. If I look at the specs for this temperature, here's a page from Adafruit. The temperature is the voltage in millivolts minus 500 divided by 10. So temperature, I'm going to say minus 500 divided by 10. That's my temperature in degrees Celsius. Now that will update many times a second. If I try to send this to the cloud many times a second, it's going to crash the cloud. And so instead of letting it crash the cloud, they're just going to block you and your device is going to blink red. And so instead, I want to use what's called a Blynk timer. And I know there are other timer libraries for Arduino, and for some reason they don't work well with Blynk. They want you to use the Blynk timer. And so the way this works is I will do two things. Here in the setup, I'll say timer.set interval. I'll have it post every second, and then I need a timer function. So I'll say my timer. I have to write that function. So up here, I'm going to write a new function, which is what I want to execute every time every second, every time this timer gets called. I can have any interval I want. So in this function, what I want to do is I want to send this value to the cloud. So I'll do blynk.virtual write v0. I'm writing the v0, and I want to write the temperature in degrees Celsius. So that should execute every second. And then the last thing I need to do is tell in the loop to run those timers. So timer.run. So that should be good to go. I'm going to flash this code to here, and while that flashes, oh, look at me, I forgot some semicolons. While that flashes, look over here, and I'm going to edit my dashboard to get that temperature. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a, let's do a chart, would be kind of cool. So I'm going to put temperature chart here. And I need to connect that to that virtual pin V0, temperature V0, and turn on this, and that looks good. Hit save and apply, and that should be running now. I have the temperature, and it says no data, so we'll wait just a second to make sure this is posting data. Go back to my terminal. I use this app called CoolTerm for my terminal, and it works really well. Oh, this didn't. That's what happened. There's another semicolon. Where did I forget it? It's 500. Parentheses there. Flash. Alright, it's Blynk and Purple, flashed, coming back online, and great. Save and apply. Let's see if we start getting some data from here. Okay, so now we're collecting data. The latest here, you can see the timestamp, it's collecting temperature data. It's, 22 degrees Celsius. It's a little bit warm, but probably about right. And I can look at how this data changes over time. So let me pinch this temperature sensor and see if I can warm it up a little bit. You can see it climbing up. Warm it up. So I have the temperature working there. If I go to the last hour, I can see kind of that spike, and it will rescale things, and it will keep updating. So now I have a kind of nice little temperature data logger set up. And under the free version, I can log data for about a week, but under the premium version, I can log data for much longer. So that's how to get Blynk set up. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that's useful.